Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Mom and I are grateful that you can join us for another week. And we're super excited today. We have Mary Madeiras on with us. Um, she is an advanced Akashic Records practitioner, author, and three-time Emmy Award-winning television director whose career bridges the worlds of spiritual transformation and broadcast storytelling. She's opened the Akashic Records for individual and corporations worldwide, offering soul-level guidance, healing, and divine remembrance. Her book, The Akashic Way, Living Through the Lens of the Akashic Records, shares direct transmissions from the records as a sacred offering for humanity's evolution. Mary's celebrated directing career spans news, talk shows, sports, and seven top-rated time dramas, including General Hospital and Another World, earning her three Emmy Awards and a Directors Guild of America Award. Her creative life and spiritual practice now exist in living collaboration where divine wisdom informs every story she tells. So, welcome, Mary. We're super excited to have you on the podcast with us.
Thank you. This is so much fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, can we start with, for anybody that doesn't know, what are the Akashic Records?
hmm So the Akashic Records are basically a quantum divine realm. It's a field, we can call it. And in this field exists an imprint, or we could say a vibrational record of every soul's journey. What every soul has thought, lived, experienced is imprinted into this quantum divine realm, into this field. And so when we access our own records, we're getting a mirror image of our higher selves, our soul's journey. We're remembering who we are, because it's easy to lose our path in today's world. The idea being that as souls we choose to incarnate in each lifetime for various, I'll say, themes. Okay. And the other idea is that it's the same soul incarnating, reincarnating lifetime after lifetime. So the idea of this field has been around and referenced throughout history. It's known as with different names. It's known as the Book of Life in the Bible. Um, the Quran's got a version of it or speaks of it. The Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of it. Tesla spoke of it. Quantum physics is now science, and quantum physics is now proving that there is this field, and it has an energy to it, and it's measurable from quantum from the terms of quantum mechanics, of course, and that it's like it's the living, breathing essence, and it can receive imprints, we'll say. So this is pretty cool. The Akashic Records are coming forward more now, and believe it's because science and spirituality are have met.
Hmm.
So it's not such a weird thing that's out there that we can't accept, I'll say. The other another person that refers to this field is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he talks about the field of possibilities. And when we get to a certain state, we bring ourselves to a particular or higher vibrational state, we actually can visit this field. Same idea, basically. And in this field that may look like nothing is where everything exists.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can anybody tap into their Akashic Records, or do you need a reader to be able to do that for you?
Anybody can tap into their Akashic Records. What is needed or necessary in order to do it, some people will try and they're like, I don't hear anything, I don't see anything. It's because the divine realm, we can call it creator, source, universe, God. Um, it's a higher vibrational space, if we want to call it that. And we're living in third dimension, and we're used to, at least in the density parts of third dimension, it's a lower vibration. So, in order for us to hear, probably psychics, same thing, from that higher vibrational place, it's important that we raise our vibration higher, right? So we can do it through meditation, being in nature does it automatically. And when our vibration goes higher, I like to say that I go from an ordinary state of consciousness to a divine state of consciousness, and I do it through a prayer. And so when I get to that higher or divine state of consciousness, I'm now hearing, and I hear blocks of thought that are not my own. That's how I know I'm there. And plus, I can feel the love from divine. So it's important to do that. And then it's also important, I say this because some people forget it's important to believe that there is a source, that there is this master something, whatever we want to call it, that has created this whole beautiful planet and everything that lives on it and lives and breathes on it. So it's important that we know that. We just know that that exists. And then there is a third part to this, which is it's important that we're in balance, that we are, if we have a lot of, you know, if we're stuck with past patterns or past life stuff or trauma, that can get in the way because we're not going to be able to raise our vibration, right? That's going to block us. So it's like it's those things are all important. And yes, everyone can access their records.
Yeah. That's that, which is hopeful, right? Because I think people want to know that, right? And sometimes feel like they have to reach out to someone to do it for them. Although I think there is some advantages to somebody else taking a look at them for you, just in the fact, especially if you're struggling to do it. Is there,
Yes.
what can we learn from the Akashic records if we're having someone do them for us or we're doing for ourselves that would help us in this time?
Well, it's the same information that's going to come through. So if I open my individual Akashic records, what's going to come through is going to be the same as if I went to a practitioner and they opened my records, right? I mean, it should be anyway. But what we get is first of all, we get washed over by the light of divine itself, which is pure love. It's just love. That's it. And that is really what everything is made of. It's what source is made of. And so we're washed over with that when we visit our records or somebody does it for us with us. And we get clarity on so many levels. We come to the records for questions, to get questions answered, to maybe get clarity about our path, our role. A lot of people feel stuck or they're at forks in the road and they don't know where to go. And what the records do is they're mirroring to us the wholeness that we are, who we really are. And so we're always getting downloads of our own self. So that triggers a remembering on a very deep level. So then what happens is when we're dialoguing inside our records, the inspired actions and the way through whatever it is we're feeling confused about just automatically happens. The path opens up because that's who we already are. We're already whole. We've just been told we're not.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
would agree with that. So when you started doing this, is this just something you learned, or was this something that you kind of were gifted at an early age, or how did this come to be for you that you started accessing them?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. Now that I've been working in the Akashic Records and my own, I have come to realize that there's a lot more that played into my coming to my own records and to this as a role that I'm expressing in this lifetime. So when I was little, I was born into a Catholic family, and I just remember being really little, like, second grade, third grade. And I remembered being in church. I really didn't understand a God that would judge and that we come in filled with sin already. I didn't understand the salvation theory. It didn't make sense to me. So I didn't rebel. I just kind of quietly said to myself, I don't think so. But I felt a presence when I would be in church, especially. I felt a presence and I felt it loving me. And I didn't express that with anyone because I was little and I didn't know, but I just knew I felt better. So much that I was going to be a nun. When I was in high school, I tried to go and be a nun. And a very dear friend of mine who was a nun, one of my teachers, sat me down, a whippersnapper, wonderful woman, and she just talked me out of it. And she said, "Why do you want to go do that? Go live life first. And then if you still want this, then come back."
That
So
was good.
I had a familiarity with divine in some way. And then, in my, so, all right. So then I went in that, when you're little, you don't know what things are really because we're not developed enough. So I grew up and did things that we do growing up and went to college and then I went into television because I was always attracted to storytelling, always, and music. And so I was in that career doing very well and having a blast. I always was seeking metaphysical stuff while I was working at the television studios. And so there was always something there. And I think it was something I already had in me. And I have come to find out that I had a past life as a cloistered nun
Oh,
way back, like around like the 1100, I mean, quite some time ago. So that would make sense out of my studying music, and I studied Gregorian chant. Who studies that? I don't know anyone that does, but I did. And you're young and you just gravitate to what you gravitate to. So there were all these little signs, right? So it wasn't like I was in television in this left brain world and then boom, I'm in the Akashic Records. What happened was there was an overlap of seeking as we've all done. I was following Eckhart Tolle, Abraham Hicks, the usual, Deepak Chopra, all of them. And I was overlapping that with working in television. And then I was having probably didn't listen to the signs that were coming up for me. And then I had a psychic reading that with a woman that I used to go to, and she saw a figure over my shoulder, and she said he guards your or guards your Akashic records. And I asked her, well, what are they? And she said, well, I'm not sure, but that's what he does. And I went and looked it up. And even then, it wasn't like choirs going off. It was like, I think I know this already. So I still didn't do anything about it. And then I was in a metaphysical bookstore out in Los Angeles in a back room by myself. And there was there was a book sticking out off the shelf above me. And I looked up and I pulled it down. And the title was How to Read Your Akashic Records. So I saw that and I was like, and I was already, listening and going to workshops with Abraham Hicks, the law of attraction, all of that. So I was already vibing with that stuff. So the fact that that happened, I went, oh, okay. Took the book home and I read it. And in that book, the author has you opening your records using a sacred prayer. And I began to hear blocks of thought that were not mine, and they were profound and beautiful. And I doubted myself. It was like, wait, who, me? And I would take what was coming through. It was just me alone doing it at my computer. And I would bring it to my wife, Christine, and say, I don't know, read this. Is this my imagination? And she would cry sometimes and say, you don't even speak this way. You're tapping into something. So it was, I bet a lot of light workers have this, and especially psychics probably have this, where you go, wait a minute, I can hear this? Like, really? Who am I? Well, what I've come to learn is we all can. So my process of learning more about myself through my own records, because then I decided to study with the author of that book, who's written 6 or 7 books on the Akashic Records. She has a center outside of Chicago. And so I got my accreditations studying under her, with her. And so the studying really was less about studying the Akashic Records, and it was more about opening our Akashic Records every day over and over to work out, not even work out, but learn more about ourselves, our past lives, things that might be in our way, and learning what our soul's chosen journey is,
mm,
right?
yeah,
That's huge because kind of once we remember why we're here, everything just gets easier and clearer and more fun. So my
yeah.
own journey was why I wrote the book, The Akashic Way, because my own records was saying to me, "You're a writer." And I was like, "No, I'm a director." I was arguing with my records. And my records were like, "Well," because the records aren't going to tell us what to do. But it was like, "There's an imprint here, Mary, that shows you as a writer." So I just let go of, I surrendered to it. And no sooner did I do that, that I got a call from somebody in the industry to write a screenplay. No joke. And I had been a director all the time before that. So, that helped me also when I heard from my own records, it's important for you to write a book or two or three about the Akashic Records. And so I was guided by my own records to allow to unfold part of my own journey, which was to write this book. And
That's interesting.
yeah,
I wonder too, like listening to you talk about it and like where you were had the pull to be a nun in this life and you were a cloistered nun in one of your past lives. And then, even as a director into the writing, it just seems like it was like the divine sense of this is where I'm supposed to be, and how
yes,
that kind of translates between, the records of this is what I'm doing. And I think that's great that you can, tap into them and be able to find out the stuff about you. The most I've ever done is I listened to someone had a like a meditation kind of going into your Akashic records, and it was really beautiful. And I got into the room and I could see like it was like a massive library. But then that's kind of where I guess I either blocked it for myself or something, because that was kind of where the end was for me.
oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Well, that would be interesting to pursue more because nothing is random. So you were brought there for some reason, or your higher self brought you to meet your higher self there,
Yeah. And
right?
I could see like the librarian higher self sitting there, and which is funny because I did a past life regression, and now that we're talking about it, as I think about it, it was the same person in my past life regression from my higher consciousness as it was that was in the Akashic records. So that's
Oh,
an
that's interesting.
yeah,
And so I might suggest that that probably was is your higher self.
interesting. That's very cool.
It
I
is
love it.
very cool. I know this is trippy stuff, but it's real. I'm here to tell you it's real. And it's life-changing. It's affirming. Um, I once asked the records, what is this all about? All of this? Why are we here? That's a big question, right?
Mhm.
And I think the answer is in my book. The answer was, you have all chosen, humanity itself has chosen to be here, souls, to co-create together back into source for the expansion of source to infinity.
Mm,
That is really profound. And
that
it
is
makes sense. We're all the same. We're all in the same soup together. And we're here to co-create back into source, meaning love, back into love, live and breathe love and act out of that and in it. And by doing that, it expands it more and it expands love itself and that expands source itself.
interesting.
It
So
made
can you
sense.
read? So for an Akashic Records, like, does everybody have an Akashic record? Does everything have an Akashic record?
Yeah. Everything has an Akashic record because anything that it has or does exist or will exist is imprinting. It's almost like, so the word Akash is a Sanskrit word or Akasha, Sanskrit word that means that out of which all things are formed. So the idea is that that field initially or originally um, existed as a blank field. And every action, every intention, every thought becomes imprinted in this field. And since it's quantum, there's no clarity to it. So there's no end to it. It's infinity, right? And so um, everything has its own record. And like ideas that come in, they have their own imprint. It's really wild. That's why I can open up, or I have opened up the records of corporations, because corporations began as an idea, and then whoever birthed the corporation, going way back to the beginning of it, got the idea, and it became a co-creative something, and then it becomes manifest. So the other thing too is, at least what I've come to learn, nothing is set in stone. We know this. We're trying to take something very ethereal and make it understandable on a third dimensional level. And what I have come to, well, what I learned when I was studying at the center was that anything that is known in the public has its record, has a record. I've come to understand this, it's even more than that. Like sacred places have an Akashic record. And that's another book I'm going to be working on, is actually opening the Akashic records up of not only, like the pyramids, the usual big ones, but there are lesser known sacred places on the planet that have a history. And so that history is imprinted in the Akashic realm. So by naming whatever it needs to be known as something. So by naming it, meaning it's in the public, like the cave of Mary Magdalene, where she did all the healings. To go to the cave and actually, whatever it's called, say the prayer and open up the records of that cave, that it's almost like the cave will speak, and it will. So sacred sites. So yes, everything has an Akashic record. Pets. I've done pets, worked with pets. Yeah, it makes sense to me that everything would, anything that exists.
Yeah, that does make sense to me too. So if you're going to do somebody's Akashic records, then I suppose a place would be different than a person. But so if you were to say to do my Akashic records, you would have to have my permission before you can go looking in them, correct?
Absolutely. And that may be one of the reasons that it has been taught, at least recently, that it needs to be known to the public, because generally things that, not you as a person, but although you are known to the public because you have a name, right? And your name is known and you have IDs and things like that. So anything that is known exists, meaning it's like free in a sense. So you're not stealing anything. And yes, it's very important to have the permission. Uh, and what's interesting is, speaking of the permission from whoever wants their records open, with pets, you ask them, you're with the pet, with the animal, any animal, and you ask them, can I open up, do you want me to, or can I open up your Akashic records? The body language of that animal will tell you yes or no. They'll look away. I've had it with my dogs. Do you want mommy to open your Akashic records? And then I had one dog and he would just turn away. I'd be like, nope, not doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that because it's nice, and I think that's reassuring for people that, right, there's not somebody mucking around in your stuff, so to
No.
speak,
And
right?
of course, that would not, I mean, think about divinity, divine, God, source. God would never want that's not divine to, that's why people that try and, like, they're doing spells on each other. I don't know about that. That feels off to me.
Like it's crossed the line, yeah.
Yeah.
So, can you ask anything of the Akashic records when you're in there? Like, obviously, like
Mhm.
not what am I gonna have for supper, but like, if if you have an opportunity or something, can you access your Akashic records and say, like, is this in my divine life path for me? Is this a good move or
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the records don't tell us what to do, but they guide us through questioning, for questions that come from the records. There's a saying that the divine moves on the spoken word, which, if you look at sacred texts, some of them, I mean, they have a vibration to them. You feel something. Or you read from sacred texts sometimes and something shifts. Well, what is that? That's the divine moving on the spoken word. So you can ask specific things. I never get yeses or nos, but I get a sense of it's for the highest good of that person, or we should talk about it more, because as then that person talks about that issue, the clarity begins to come through from their higher self.
Mhm.
It's really amazing. Um, there are three absolutes to the Akashic Records, and they are fear not, judge not, and resist not. And, there's no judgment in the records. There's never. Why would there be? There's no judgment with source. Although some religions say there is
Right.
not. Right. And if we don't resist, if we don't judge ourselves, um, and if we don't have fear, then we're going to receive like there's no tomorrow. We're going to receive doses of ourself, and that is where we get the clarity. So it just happens. It happens, but it happens by intention, participating, and participating for the client, or whoever's opening the records, by participating in the need for clarity. That alone begins to open up something.
Mhm. Interesting. I,
Mm-hmm.
I just I just find it so amazing that, we have so much potentiality as humans to access all of these divine sources that brings us information about really how to live our best life if
Yeah,
we
Yeah.
listen and go into them. So I think that's amazing. Um,
we
so
do. We do have,
before
you're absolutely right. There are a lot of resources that we have available to us. Um, anyway, I agree.
Yeah, it astounds me how, and I think for me, like when I sort of did that meditation, just how, I don't know, the sense of just being in that place with this like divine love being felt, that you knew you were protected and safe while you were in there, and that there was just so much knowledge to be gained.
It's very powerful. And it's showing us, because you were meeting up with your higher self, so you were being shown yourself. That it just as big and as amazing as that is or was for you, to then have the afterthought, and that's me. And the answer is, yeah, that is you.
Yeah.
It's it's very empowering.
It is. What
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most challenging, if you can share, of somebody that you've done the records for, something that's been either very challenging or very surprising?
I haven't, the thing is, I flow the information, and, I'm present, of course, because the divine uses my way of speaking, my imagination, um, in a relatable way. There's nothing that has thrown me. Um, what's surprising to me at times is when I will get sometimes just a word, I'll get a word or a phrase. And part of my prayer when I'm in the records, before going into the records, is that my ego is not present. So it's just not there. And I have tried to have an opinion in my mind during a reading. I can't. It's the trippiest thing. I just can't. And
Wow.
people come to the records with a lot of stuff, a lot of weird things, um, or traumatic stuff. So there's nothing that's been surprising. Okay, so surprising part is when I'll get a phrase or word that I don't know what it means. I once had a woman who was feeling I don't, everyone comes to their records, by the way. They're drawn to their own records. That's 100% what happens. I don't run around telling people, come to the records. I can't do that. That's like selling the divine.
Right.
So that being said, this woman was in her reading, and she had a skeptical energy. And it was like I couldn't have an opinion about it. I just kept going with what the records were giving me to give her or to ask her. And all of a sudden, I was shown a picture of a toilet bowl. What? And so I didn't say it right away. And then finally, I just said, I don't know why, but your higher beings are showing me a toilet bowl. And she goes, oh, well, that's interesting because I just got a new toilet bowl delivered yesterday. So I'm like, those are surprising to me because it's almost like I almost feel like divine sometimes plays with me. Like, you know what, Mary, we're not going to let you doubt. We're going to give you these things that there's no way you could know. And then it's going to come back at you because people will go, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that.
Right.
Um, there was another interesting people. I just love people. Interesting reading recently, and it was a woman who is an artist, and she somehow France came up, and that's how it'll work. I out of nowhere, I heard what is there about France? And she said, "Well, I've been there, and when I was there, I cried because I didn't want to come home. I didn't want to come back. So I know I've been there before." And it was like, "Yep." And then I was shown this, I was given this information. It was pretty specific. It was that she was married, she was an apprentice to an artist, a lesser known artist, but well known in France. She was married to him and she was also his apprentice. And um, he would invite her to finish some of his works, but no one knew she was finishing the works. So it was kind of very specific, right?
Mm.
I'm telling you, hours after her reading, she emailed me and she's like, I know who I was. She found the painter. She found the painter whose wife was the apprentice in France, in the town. She had been to that town and she goes, I know that I was his wife and I'm the one that finished the paintings, whatever. And I was like, wow, that came back to me. And I was just like, that is like amazing. To me, it's just more amazing.
Hmm.
I haven't really, the only nothing troubling really because divine handles everything. And I trust in that. So there isn't much that surprises me. I just flow the information for the highest good of that individual and anyone connected to that individual. I recently had the term come up with in after a reading with someone, and they wrote to me and they implied something about spiritual bypassing. I'll just put it that way. And I was like, well, this is interesting. So there was skepticism there. And also it's interesting because this client came to the records and when I first met him online, I said, how did you get here? Why are you here? And he goes, I don't know. I just want to see what it's all about. Right? Now, you're not going to get much out of your records if you just come to kind of check them out because that's not what they're here for, or that's not the purpose of them, is to reignite who we are, meet up with who we are. There's an engagement, and the engagement becomes really valuable and juicy and wonderful when we are bringing, you don't have to come in with concerns. Maybe you just want affirmations about something, or you want to meet up. Even if he had said, I just want to meet my higher self on another level. Great. That's an intention, isn't it? No, it was so interesting. And I tried to talk him out of having a reading, and he was like, no. And so he wanted it. So I couldn't stop that. And even within the reading, he said something to me about my philosophizing, me. He pointed to like, you're philosophizing and I don't need any more of that or something like that. And I stopped and I waited to hear what his records would say. And they basically guided me to say to him, I'm not the one saying this. This is you saying it. And he kind of just looked at me and it's like, you may not understand the process of what's really happening here. And the records gave him a little lesson on what the records are while being in his records. So that was a little trippy. I had never experienced that.
Very trippy.
Right? I know.
Yeah,
But there was a reason he was there and actually did come through. The divine always handles everything. It's just the way it works. It just,
sure.
that's, which just reaffirms, not that I need that now, but it's more and more of a reminder of what is really going on at source, at the level of source.
Yeah.
right? And it's not source is running everything. Source created us in co-creation with it,
Right.
right? That's the new thought.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, like even when you like referencing back to when you were talking about you went into the bookstore and looked up and there's this book and like that's the divine's plan, right? And
Yes.
like we've been saying that lately because we're kind of embarking on some new adventures and we'll hit an obstacle and I'm like, whatever, the divine has a plan, so whatever that's supposed to be, it will work out in its due time, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's amazing.
Well, and also the new message, there are many new things coming through, new messages. And one is that it's not so much the divine is going to, so that book on the shelf was not so much divine saying, come on, it was my own higher self that knew that I'm here to do some other things, right? And my mind, my ego, the other parts of us that we grapple with every day was resisting it in some way. We get nudges all the time, and it's not always from some, in fact, it's never from something outside of ourselves. It's from our higher self, which is the divine. And that's new for people to hear
Yeah.
because they want to know that there's somebody else in charge. And the somebody
Yeah.
else says, sorry, I'm not in charge. We are together.
Yeah. Which is beautiful, really, if you think about it, because that gives you your free will. That gives you, where you can access these different things. It's where you can change things. If you
Yes.
went in and saw your record, I'm assuming like you saw something that you didn't like in your past, a past life or your past whatever record, you would have that ability in this life on this plane to make the changes to like, oh, I don't want to go down that one. I should have learned that lesson. Or how does
Well,
that
I
work
can
with
I can actually take it a step further, and I know I'm going to wind up creating workshops around this one. Is
it?
that when we look at, and I have an example of it. It was someone who was told that no, yeah, in past life, she said, I know she was fearing her own power, and she said, I found out that in a past life, um, I misused my power, and I immediately heard quantumly put an X over miss. You didn't misuse your power. You used your power. And if we were to go back to time where we might have, where we find out our lifetime, we go, ooh, I did that, right? And we think we have to learn a lesson. The records say there's no such thing as lessons. There is just understanding, not validating if we hurt people, understanding why something happened. This woman shifted when she heard this suggestion that she used her power in a way that might have looked like on paper, yes, you did hurt people. However, if you were to fa- fast backward to that time period, you would understand why that happened. When we have the understanding of those past lives that might feel uncomfortable or we're not proud of, let's say, the understanding of it, that's how it shifts. It actually shifts the energy of those past lives so that there's nothing we have to do in this lifetime, except we still have the energy of it, except we can use that energy in a different way. And there's where we have the choice.
I love that.
So she can use her power. She doesn't have to worry about misusing it because she didn't misuse it. She just used it a lot, we could say. So
Yeah.
much, so much of this is about perceptions, and perceptions are they trap us sometimes.
Mhm.
That's why we have
Mm.
religions. Sorry, I had to say
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say you said that. But it's the truth, right? And I think it is all about perception because exactly where you just said that was, she had thought one way when actually when you look back on it as more of an observer than being in that situation, maybe it really wasn't what she had perceived it to be in the beginning and then could use that to probably harness and give her and reclaim her power in this life.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And also that with in the case of trauma, whether it's our childhood traumas or a past life, what I've been guided towards a lot is this a new understanding of this, which is that trauma well, first of all, everything's energy, and we know that. And so trauma is no matter what form it's in, it's energy. It has energy. It is energy. When we look at our trauma, the records never really care. I shouldn't say care, but they don't emphasize like digging into what the specifics were. If a person wants to speak about it because they need to, that's fine. But
Right.
there's never this like, tell me what happened when you were 6 and 8 and whatever. No. But what happens is when we do look at our trauma, we can also identify what the energy of that is. So for example, if somebody was shut down, various ways we can be shut down when we're little, and if they were shut down physically or mentally, there's a power in shutting down. The person that's shutting down the little one is exerting power. There's an energy to it. So when we are adults and we're looking back at that, what we can do is try and separate, the records help us do this, separate the energy of the trauma from the actual event of the trauma. And when we separate the energy from the trauma, we then it doesn't lessen any pain we might have experienced. The records don't suggest that, but it's more like when we just separate the two, then the energy of it, which is power in the case of some traumas, we can actually mine that, M-I-N-E. We can mine that energy in the present moment
Right.
that we're in. And if if we're light beings, and we know we are in our adult life, we can look at those traumatic times and do that, identify the energy of it and go, wow, yeah, I do see the energy of it. And what it does is it transmutes the trauma somehow. Doesn't invalidate it. It still happened. And what the records say was those were circumstances. That's what those were. Those were circumstances that happened. And yes, they could have been painful and awful and all of that. However, if you could pull the energy away from it, because they all had energy attached, then you can use that energy and it becomes an asset. That's what looking at our lives through the Akashic lens can do.
Mhm. That's very interesting. So how vast is our records? Like, could I go from now until the end of my life and access my records and find out different information all the time? Or is there a
Well,
limit?
it's an
Or
interesting question. And I'm still also expanding and learning more and more about this myself, is that the records, our soul's journey, everything, we have freedom, and it's always about possibilities and probabilities. So that being said, we can carve out our future in whatever way that we want. So my understanding from what I hear from divine is that our soul's chosen journey in each lifetime is the what we choose. I like to call it as an overarching theme. The reason we come incarnate is fixed. How we express that journey is absolutely any way we want. It's totally, we have options, no boundaries around that. So we come, for example, somebody might come in for a theme of self-love, to participate in self-love, learn it, breathe it, expand on it, whatever. If that's it, see, but that's what I'm saying. So the soul's choice is not, I'm going to come into a creepy family and do this and that and whatever. Those are the expressions of that soul's journey. And that's why when we look back at either our past lives or our childhood, we can see through the lens of the records that everything that is and has happened to us, with us, for us, is part of our soul's chosen journey. It all fits in always. It's not that there's a
Right.
reason for it, but it just fits in. And when we can do that, or rather, when we can allow that concept to be our truth, which is, as I know it, truth, it's so, I mean, anything's possible. That's how it feels. So we can, so do we go to the records for the future? My understanding is no, because we haven't imprinted it yet. That's my
Okay.
understanding of it. Now, people will say, yeah, you can. Well, if our if what we are right now and how we express ourselves right now stays the same 100 years from now, it will most likely be the same kind of imprint, I would think. That's just kind of logical.
Okay. Makes
Um,
sense.
but no, I don't think of it. I think of it as future possibilities, and we always have choice.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if we know what our past was and what our mission sort of
Mm-hmm.
is, then we can reflect on that and be like, oh, look, these are the lessons that I was learning along the way, and how do I implement that to move forward? Then I think, like you were saying, then it becomes free will on our point at this point, and at some point, whatever we've co-created now will then become part of the records at some point.
Futuristic. Yeah.
Yes, it will, because also, our DNA contains energy, is energy, and energy never dies. So every lifetime has the energy of every lifetime in the now, always. That
Well,
is the power of now. So
yeah.
we can access, when we do learn about past lives, we can call forth, I should say, that energy of a past lifetime if we want, which is, that can, the power of that, we don't even know yet. Even I don't know how big this is. So
Right.
I have been shown by the records that if, for example, we lived in a lifetime where cancer did not exist, a past life. And if, God forbid, we get a diagnosis of cancer in this lifetime, if we know that past lifetime, we can actually tap into our DNA, intend that the no cancer shows up, that it comes forth. We can bring it forward, and our cells will know no cancer. They'll respond to that. That's what I'm hearing, right? And people are going to think I'm crazy.
Well,
I don't think you're crazy because I think our minds are so powerful and our ability to co-create and know these things are just something that we've forgotten. And I think that as we move on in time and we learn that we can reclaim that power and reclaim how to use our abilities in that way, that we're going to see a shift in the collective on Earth
oh
because
yeah,
we have to, because
I do.
there's so much that yes, I agree. A lot of people are going to hear that and be like, okay, Mary,
Yeah, fine.
sure.
Yeah, I
But it's
know.
the truth. It's the truth. So, you
It
know,
is the truth. And also, I've been hearing that that's how we began with what you're describing. Like, Kim, exactly what you just said. That is it. So, the new earth is not something we haven't, it's how we were already. We were that. We already were whole, telepathic humans, co-creating in love and light and ease and grace, and we're returning to that. We've had this period of what, 2000 or more years of being asleep, and what I understand is that it happened from the formation of the ego.
Yeah, yeah.
that does not surprise me. Because
Yeah.
as soon as we bring that
Oh,
ego in, and we were just having this conversation earlier, but as soon as we bring that ego in, it blocks all of this other stuff, right?
Yes.
Because we're trying to control the situation at that point instead of just allowing it to be.
right.
Yes. And the ego is, Eckhart Tolle speaks of this a lot. He calls it a monster, um, and giggles about it. And, there's such truth to what he brings to us about the ego is that the ego fears its demise. The records, I have 2 chapters in my book that came through from the records about ego, that the ego is actually not real. That what it is, this what the records are saying now, that the and I like that I can always say, but the record said it, not me. But what I have been hearing is that the ego forms itself from, it starts with when an individual, we'll talk about humans, does not see that it is light. It doesn't know it's love. We don't know we're love because maybe we've never been loved. We don't know it. We don't know we're light. So the actions we take are unlove, unlight, right? Abraham Hicks says, when you walk in a room, there's no dark switch, which is so funny. There isn't. There is no darkness. There is lack of light. And so undivine, not knowing your light, taking actions out of unlight, non-divine, then that energy, the energy of those actions collects. And it collects, and I'm always shown an image of like a balloon filling up. So the more of those actions, we have plenty of people on our planet that are doing this right now. And, some people will say, oh, you're going to tell me they're really of the light? Actually, they are. They just don't know it. So they don't know it. They keep feeding into the balloon, harming people on the way. And the balloon fills up, and then eventually it's going to pop. When it pops, we see that there was nothing in it to begin with. So what happens is the ego forms itself. It almost has a self-awareness from from the collection of the undivine, unlight acts, okay, which is the energy, the collection of the energy of unlight. There is no such thing as unlight. There's only light. So it's almost like the perception that it has of itself is the ego.
Right.
And it fears its demise. So the trickery of it, and Eckhart dances around this a little bit, the trickery of it is that it has itself believing it's relevant, and therefore others do, and then they get attracted to it. And it can't, like, for example, if somebody knows their love and light, the ego can't come in. It can't exist because it doesn't exist. So that's another trippy. Oh, this conversation here with us, you're going to get a lot of people writing in. It's crazy.
That's okay.
Crazy.
We might just get people writing in and be like, I need to know more.
Or maybe I know this already because
Or
we
I
all
know
have
this
inside
already.
us.
Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of, I need to know more, where can everybody find you?
Okay, so I have a website, which is the akashicway.com. And my book, The Akashic Way, is on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And you can also email me if you want at mary@theakashicway.com. So it's all easy. It's just the Akashic Way all over the place.
I love it. So if you had a final thought to leave with everybody and us, what would it be?
Well, I just want to really beg everyone to please know that everything's really okay. And the reason everything's, even though we can look out our window and see a lot of garbage going on, that the light always wins. And this is going to sound pie in the sky, but this is the reality that I know. And I always did know it from when I was little. So I'm going to stand by this. We are really okay. We're more than okay. We are all beings of light and love. That's what we're made of. And that's what's real. Anything else outside of that is not real. So let's just stand together in that reality and we'll feel better. Life will get easier and it will be more joyful.
Beautiful. I
Beautiful.
love that.
Me too. Yeah,
I think gives a lot of hope to people.
Yes.
it does. Yes, it does.
And you have to keep doing what you're doing. It's so important.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you for being on with us and sharing
Yes.
your wealth of knowledge. Like, it's incredible. And,
Thank you.
I just think there's so much more. And like you said, you're going to have
We can
more
talk.
books. So It'll
So
be
much more we can
wonderful
talk
to
about.
see. Yeah.
It's endless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is. I'm being invited to do more by spirit, by the way, not by people. Well, that's not true. People are asking, where idea workshops can I, whatever. I want more. I want to talk about this more. The reason that
Right.
people want to talk about it more is because it's reigniting, it's what happened for me, what we already are, right? And that's exciting. When you are remembering who you are, how exciting is that? It's like
No
a
kidding.
kid knowing who they are before other people try and tell them they're not special. I'll say that.
Right.
So I'm going to look for ways, and I don't know if it's just bigger Zoom calls with more people so that we can ask these questions and bring them into the records and get more enlightenment coming in. Edgar Casey was doing it. He was accessing the Akashic Records.
Well,
Yeah.
So we have to do
Well,
that more.
I agree with you. And we would love to have you back on when your new
Thank
book
you.
comes out or anytime really, with us to, just get this information out to people because I think we both think it's really important information to spread out
very
to
much.
everybody. So thank you
Yeah.
again for joining us on our podcast.
You're really
Oh,
welcome.
you
Thank you
betcha.
too.
You betcha. Thank you.
And everyone else, we will see you on the next one.
You bet you will.